Hello my lovelies, this is Miss Bennett doing a quick run through showing you when you have your opening here on your hot and cold pack, how we want to have this opening, how we're going to hand stitch it closed. Now, first thing we want to do is get ourselves a needle, okay? This one we find in the little green teddy bear box, sticking out of the lid, kind of looking like a little porcupine. So you need to find yourself a needle. We also need to get some cotton thread, and we want to cut a piece of the thread that's about as wide as your elbows are when you stick your arms out. So it'll be a little bit wider than can fit in the frame, right? Quite a decently long piece, and we want to cut that thread there. So once we've got that thread cut, what we want to do is pinch it in our fingers. I don't know if you can see there, pinching it in our fingers here like this, and then taking our needle, and there's a little hole at the tip of the needle, and we want to feed that through your needle there. And the shorter you hold it pinched in your fingers, the easier you're going to find it. Once you've got that through, we need to fold our piece of thread, or make sure it doesn't get any knots in it. Pull that piece of thread until it's folded in half, and you're taking your two little edges and sticking them together like this, okay? And once we've folded that together, we now treat this like it's its own solid piece of thread. So we've got a double layered piece of thread, and then our needle is at the other end of it, okay? So we've got the end with our two little threads here. We want to put down the needle for now. With these two little ends, we want to make a loop, kind of like you're tying a balloon. So you want to make a loop with your hands. There we go, I don't know if you can see that there. Whoop, a little loop. And then we want to tuck the ends through the loop. Once we tuck them through the loop, like that, it should be looking something like this, okay? Look like a little loop-de-loop, kind of like a roller coaster. Then once you've got that there, then we can tighten that loop, and we've made ourselves a little knot. It's the same kind of motion as when you're tying, say, like a water balloon, similar motion to that. So you'll make a loop, tuck the ends through the loop, and tighten it. So now we have our needle on our thread, and we're tightened, ready to go. At this point is when, if you're watching the video, you want to pause, go and get those things and get up to this stage. Once you've gotten to this stage, then we'll carry on. So once you're here and you've got your thread all nice and tied, this is where we need to come to our little opening, and we want to, if you've got your pin in place, take out that pin, open up the opening so that we're looking on the inside where those little edges we ironed inside and we folded them over, these little flappy bits. We want to fold these over. Once we've folded these over, then we need to take your needle with the thread on it and poke it just through the very top part there. It's a little bit tricky to see, but you should be able to see where your machine stitch is finished, and we're sticking it through just where those machine stitches finish. So we're right at the very, very beginning of the hole, with the rest of the hole open on the left side, okay? So we're starting from the right of the hole, and we're going to close the hole moving in the left direction, okay? So with that poked through, we can pull the needle through and slide it along nearly all the way through. But before it goes all the way to the knot, we actually want to grab that knot and split it open like this. So we can see I've got my two little fingers inside, and with those fingers open, I can take the side that's, I'll let go of them. So you want to split it open, put a couple fingers through so you open it up nice and wide. Take the side that has the needle on it and pass it through that loop so that it's going through the loop, and we're making a little secure knot. And when you slide it down, now when I tug on the needle, it's nice and secured and it's attached to my fabric. Now these little ends that you've got here sticking up are little, we call these tail ends. These little tails, we want to hide these So we want to tuck them inside of your fabric there, tucking them down on the inside, okay? And we want to use your left hand. If you're right-handed, you use your left hand to pinch that opening closed, okay? So I'm holding it closed, pinching my 2 layers together like this, and then we're ready to start stitching. So pause again and get yourself up to this point, and then we'll carry on. All right, I've just zoomed in a little bit closer so you can see a little bit better. So again, making sure that your knot where you've done your first little attachment there is really close to the opening there. So you can see when I split my 2 layers apart, my thread is coming right from the beginning there. And then I'm pinching my opening closed with my left hand. All right, so now what we want to do is with that strand, pull that nice and tight so that you can see where it's coming out of the fabric. And we want to take our needle from the side that's closest to you, and we're always going to be poking the needle away from you. So away from you, the tip of the needle always needs to point in that direction. So we're going to bring our needle and we're going to move it along just a little bit, maybe a couple millimeters from where it last came out of the fabric. So if I lay those 2 down, can you see the size gap? We want to make sure that gap is smaller than the filling that we're using. So if we're using the linseed, that's quite little, we want to make sure we're doing these really nice and close together, okay? So that it can't slip out in between our stitches. So with that gap there looking nice, we want to keep pushing the needle all the way through and nice and gently pulling it through. Now if you see any little knots that are forming here as you're pulling it through, just pull it back a little bit and then straighten it out, and then keep pulling through. So you want to make sure you've tugged it all the way through and it's sitting nice and flat here, yeah? And then what we do is rather than coming back in this direction, we always keep our needle with the tip poking away from us. So we actually bring it and it kind of wraps around over the top, and it's gonna eventually look like a little spiral. So again, we move along a couple millimeters from where we last had our needle through. Now making sure, whoop, there we go. Can you see my 2 layers of fabric? I want to make sure it goes through both layers so that we're actually securing our fabric together, okay? And also make sure that your little flappy pieces of the edges of your fabric are tucked inside and that you're pinching it closed. So again, keep your thread nice and straight so we don't get any knots in it. And we want to pull all the way tight, and it's gonna start to form a little spiral. So I'm gonna keep going along the edge here, slowly tightening, moving a couple millimeters at a time, slowly along the edge. So now that I've done a couple stitches, can you start to see? It's a little bit tricky. We've got 1, 2, 3 loops here. So we're starting to have a little kind of spiral, a little diagonal line. Yeah, I missed that second layer, so we want to pull it back through. Keep poking. Let's do a little midway check so you can see my little spiral stitches. And again, let's check how much more. Whoop, I've got about a finger's width more to do of my opening. I can shove my little pinky in there. So we've got a little bit more to do before we close it off. So if you haven't already, go and start doing this now, and I'll meet you at the other end. All right. When you think you're getting close, you want to check that you've gotten all the way along by pulling open and stretching and checking, oh, is there any more hole there? Does anything open up? You can also tip it over and see, oh, does any of my filling come out? No, no more filling comes out. So I've now made it to the end of my hole, okay. So once you're here at this point and you're caught up to me, now we're going to need to do a knot. So we don't just cut and snip our threads straight away where they are. Unlike the machine sewing, our hand sewing is going to unravel if we do that. We have to tie another knot at this end. So what you do is you, without moving any further this direction, you want to poke your needle through just like you're going to do another stitch. Once you've poked that needle through, you want to take the thread here and we want to wrap it around the needle. So you're going behind, around and in front, and it'll make kind of like a little spiral pattern. I'll see if I can zoom in and show you a bit better. So we're wrapping around, behind and in front. And we should see little spirals going up the needle there. All right, so once you've got 3 little spirals that you can see and you've done it 3 times, you pull on the piece of thread again, and this is the side that's coming out of the fabric, not the side that's attached to the needle, but the side that's coming from the fabric. You slide that down and you want to put your thumb over it so that you can pinch these little loops here. So pinching your little spirals. Once you've got that pinched there, you can finish pulling the needle all the way through so that it tightens. Pulling it all the way through, and now we have a little bit of a knot there, okay? And we need to do that one more time. So again, you poke the needle in the same place as though you're going to do a stitch partway along. You take the end of the thread that's coming out from the fabric side, so you can give it a yank. Yep, it's coming from the fabric. We want to wrap underneath and over. That's 2 times, there we go, underneath and over. One more time, underneath and over. So now I have, oh, something happened there, we go. Now I can see 3 little spirals on my needle there. Now I can slide them down and use my thumb to pinch them in place. And then I can tug this one tight. So now I've done 2 little knots down here and it's really nice and secure. But before we go ahead and we again snip, if we snip really close to where this knot is, it's going to unravel. But we don't want a really long tail sticking out of our fabric. So what we have to do is we have to hide the end of this fabric here. So what we do is we open up your wheat bag. So you open it up. So rather than pinching it flat like this, we open it up and you want to stick your needle into the middle of your product, just where you've done the knot, okay? So sticking it in the middle, you can see it's not coming out from either side, it's in between both layers. Once your needle's stuck all the way in, you can further away, so see there we are next to the little car, you can poke your needle out a little bit further along and pull that one nice and tight. So now there should be a piece of string coming from the knot going through the fabric and popping out over the side here. So where we've pulled it out of the fabric, this is where we're going to trim our ends. And when we do that, we'll have our extra little tail so that it doesn't unravel, but it will be hidden nicely inside and we can't see any of the little tail threads there. So that is the end of how you close up that opening. So now we've got that opening closed. Check that no more fillings coming out, right? And then we're good to go. And you'd repeat that same process along your different sections. So if you want, you can go back to the beginning of this video and keep replaying it and pausing and stitching along with me.